Welcome to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. In this week's program, suicide of rape victim in Pakistan after perpetrators prep their way out of arrest. Irom Sharmila released and re-arrested in her 14th year of hunger strike. AFSPA discussed in relation to upcoming national elections in India. Sri Lanka human rights defenders arrested in the north. Kerala lawyer speaks out about torture ordeal. Children dying from hunger in Pakistan, and Voice of Survivors this week from Assam. Welcome to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. I'm Ansar Stianas. A girl in Pakistan has committed suicide by self-immolation after her rapist prepped the police to release them. The 18-year-old college student died in hospital after setting herself on fire in the front of a police station in Muzaffargarh, Punjab province, in protest against the injustice. The girl was gang raped by 4 persons on January 5th, and since then, the authorities have supported the rapist instead of her. The perpetrators are influential in the area, and the police exonerated them from the rape charges. The victim had reported the crime to the police, stating that she was on her way to college when the accused, Nader Khan, and his 4 accomplices gang raped her. Police Sub-Inspector Zulfikar, the investigation officer, conducted an investigation and declared the main accused, Nader Khan, innocent after taking a bribe. The police refused to send a report request to the hospital for medical tests until forced after protests from civil society and the victim's family. The rape was confirmed by the medical report, but the investigation officer still released the accused. When the victim learned about the release of the accused, she set herself on fire outside the police station. No officer from the station made any effort to stop her. She was taken to the hospital, where the doctor said she had suffered burns to 70% of her body. She died in the hospital the following day, and protests were held throughout the country after the news of her death. Subsequently, when Jilani, the Chief Justice of Pakistan, received notice of the death, he called for a report from the provincial government and the police for not providing justice to the victim. The Chief Minister of the province then ordered the arrest of the investigation officer and the rapist. So far, only one of the prime accused has been arrested, along with the investigation officer. In Manipur in northeast India, attempting to commit suicide is a crime. However, murders by the armed forces is not. The annual ritual of release and re-arrest of human rights defender Irom Sharmila reaffirms this doctrine once again. 38-year-old human rights defender Irom Sharmila has completed 14 years of her hunger strike in protest against the enforcement of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act 1958, or AFSPA, a special legislation empowering armed forces to use little force and providing virtual immunity for such acts. She was released on March 13 after completion of 1 year and re-arrested on her birthday, March 14, as she continued her hunger strike. Irom Sharmila is on hunger strike since 2000, following an arbitrary massacre of 9 people in a village called Malom in Manipur, and is force-fed through a nasal drip. Ever since then, she has been booked under Section 309 of the Indian Penal Code, which criminalizes attempt to suicide and prescribes a 1-year imprisonment as punishment. The enforcement of AFSPA has been criticized as one of the most draconian and repressive laws, and there is a consistent demand for its repeal by the civil society.
We are also trying to push the issue of Armed Forces Special Powers Act to be included in all the political parties' agenda. To that effect, we have, from the very beginning of this year, as 2014 came in, it was a significant year because it was also the 10th anniversary of the Prime Minister of India promising that this act needs to be replaced by a more humane act. But despite the fact that this present UPA government have continued to be in power all this whole decade, they are completely ignoring that promise, and they are pretending as if they haven't said anything. I mean, as rightly pointed out by many civil society groups, there's a huge vested interest that is created around the continuation of AFSPA, and around AFSPA, the impunity and complete opaqueness in governance. And many people are benefiting substantially out of this. Those people, particularly yielding power both at the state as well as even non-state entities. So for them, removing AFSPA and installing a transparent governance structure, there is much for them to lose, but there is also much for the ordinary people to gain. And so we should continue to demand this. If democracy has to have any meaning, we cannot live with virtual military rule, and transparency and governance accountability is very, very critical for a truly democratic setup, and we'll continue to fight for it.
In Sri Lanka, two human rights activists who were visiting the Kilinochchi area to inquire over the arrest of human rights defender Jayakumari Balandran and her 13-year-old daughter were also detained on March 16. Human rights advisor R.K Fernando from Inform, a human rights documentation center based in Colombo, and Reverend Praveen, director of the Center for Peace and Reconciliation based in Jaffna in North Sri Lanka, have been detained by the Terrorist Investigation Division and are being questioned separately. For more on this story, we have Basil Fernando in the studio. Welcome, Basil. Can you tell us more about this series of arrests of human rights defenders in Sri Lanka?
Yes, last week, two persons were arrested. That is the Balachandran Jayakumari and her 13-year-old daughter. Now, when the British Prime Minister came for the Commonwealth Conference which was held a few months back, there were a lot of protests regarding disappearances and other human rights violations. And at that stage, photographs of this 13-year-old daughter of Jayakumari appeared in many newspapers. Her request was that her brother should be found. He has also disappeared. The timing of their arrest was more or less the same time when the discussion of the at least the Human Rights Council sessions have started, and in this session there's a resolution moved by the United States regarding reconciliation and human rights in Sri Lanka. Now, two human rights activists based in Colombo, R.K Fernando and Father Praveen, quite well-known people in Sri Lanka, they went to visit the houses of these people because of the arrest. People were disturbed. Now they have also been arrested.
You mentioned about the UN Human Rights Council has proposed a resolution for the reconciliation and human rights in Sri Lanka. Can you tell us more about this resolution and how's the government reaction on this?
Yeah, the resolution is moved by the United States. Actually, this is a follow-up to the resolution which was moved earlier, requesting the Sri Lankan government to do the investigations into human rights violations which was linked to the struggle with the LTTE. Allegations are that there are large numbers of killings of civilians and also disappearances, rape of women and things like that. Now it was the Sri Lankan government who should have honored that resolution and did their own investigations. Instead, the government took a very haughty attitude and said that there is nothing to investigate and virtually did nothing. This new resolution is meant to give the power to the Human Rights High Commissioner with the experts that she may select to do the investigation through her office. It's a very historically important resolution. Actually, this is the first time that the Human Rights Council is taking up such a position. If the resolution is passed, this will be a very positive step towards, for Sri Lanka as a whole. In the AHRC statement, we have, urged the government to take a positive view of this resolution instead of the very negative view taken by the President of Sri Lanka, who said that it is only the people of Sri Lanka who can judge whether they are right or wrong during the elections, and nobody else has any power to, to investigate us. Sri Lanka is a member of the United Nations and also of the Human Rights Council. A member cannot take that position unless the member wants to leave the Council and the United Nations. UN High Commissioner is also authorized and required to investigate also the violations of the terrorists, the LTTE. Now, this is the first time that UN body will investigate into the human rights violations and war crimes of a terrorist group. So it's a very momentous, resolution, which has implications not only for Sri Lanka but for other countries.
Kerala lawyer R.K Asha, practicing at Thrissur courts, was brutally attacked by the local police late last month. The incident happened when she went to help her client and friend, Ms. Nitu, who was being arrested. Sub-Inspector of Police Lal Kumar, stationed at Thrissur East Police Station, not only assaulted the lawyer, but detained her son on fabricated charges and assaulted the lawyer's minor daughter. The children had accompanied their mother since the lawyer was traveling at night. The Sub-Inspector of Police Lal Kumar pushed Asha out of the room, upon which Asha fell down on the ground. She suffered serious injuries on both legs when Lal Kumar started kicking her. Then the police dragged Asha out of the police station and slapped Asha's minor daughter.
My understanding is that he has got a personal vengeance against me. That is something he don't like me, maybe my activities or maybe my advocacy or something like that. That is why first time he insulted me while I came went to the police station with complainant. Second time he brutally attacked me and even hooked my child in with all the about 12 sections, 13 sections were there, even 333, 353, 32 were. And my child along with my other boys were taken to the magistrate only next day by 2 p.m. Before that they were taken to the district hospital, but the doctor haven't recorded the injuries. The magistrate also haven't recorded the injuries, even though he repeatedly told them. And he was taken to the prison with other boys, and the boys there also they told about the injuries. But what received is that they made two beat with with the cane under their feet in the prison itself. What is happening really in India is that this will happen even to me. Then what is the plight of an ordinary lady who approaching a police station, or ordinary man who was approaching a police station?
The AHRC has received disturbing information regarding 193 children starving to death in Thar district of Pakistan in the last 3 months. The authorities have acknowledged some of the deaths but are blaming diseases. Independent sources have conclusive evidence that they are caused by the famine. Serious lack of health facilities in the area, which has just one hospital serving a population of 1.5 million, further complicates the situation and has given rise to serious distress migration to nearby districts. To make matters worse for the victims, the provincial government has admitted their negligence in distributing wheat to address the situation, but instead letting it rot while children were dying. Most of the victims belong to the Dalit community of minority Hindus, and some believe that governmental apathy and inaction emanates from the institutionalized persecution of religious minorities in Pakistan. In this week's Voices of Survivors, we hear from Assam torture survivor Bhiman Bose, who has spent more than 10 years fighting for justice.
1999 চনত অসমত গুপ্ত হত্যা চলি আছিলে তেনেকাতে এদিন 13 ছেপ্টেম্বৰ ৰাতি 10টা মান বজাত সাৰেন্দাৰ আলফা আৰু পুলিচৰ মানুহে আহি পেলাই মোৰ ঘৰত সোমাই পুনৰ ৰূপৰ বস্তু বাহিনী লৈ পেলাই মোক দাঙি লৈ যায় তাৰপিছতে মই মোৰ এগেইনষ্টত সিহঁতে কেছ লগালে মোক বাটতে সিহঁতে পলাবলৈ কৈছিলে মই নপলোৱা দেখি পেলাই তেওঁলোকে মোক বহুত টৰ্চাৰ কৰিলে, টৰ্চাৰ কৰি পেলাই মোৰ হাত ভাঙি দিয়ে আৰু সিহঁতে মই বেংগলী টাইগাৰ ফ'ৰ্চৰ এডভাইজাৰ বুলি 3 দিনৰ পিছত মোৰ এগেইনষ্টত এটা কেছ দিয়ে। পাছত মই তাৰপিছতে মই কেছ চলি থাকে আৰু মই হিউমেন ৰাইটছত কেছ দিওঁ। হিউমেন ৰাইটছত 10 বছৰ কেছটো কৰাৰ পিছত মোৰ ন্যায় একো নকৰিলে, 20,000 টকা ক্ষতিপূৰণ দিলে, সিহঁতৰ একো ব্যৱস্থা নহ'ল। তাৰপিছতে মই হাইকোৰ্টতো মানে ৰিট পিটিশ্যন দিলোঁ। ৰিট পিটিশ্যনৰ এতিয়া যিটো পজিশ্যন, তেওঁলোকে কৈছে বোলে কোনো ব্যৱস্থাই নাই তেনেকুৱা কম্পেনচেশ্যনৰ। তাৰপিছত কি কৰে এতিয়ালৈকেও মানে কেছ চলিয়ে আছে। মেলিচিয়াছ প্ৰচিকিউশ্যনৰ মই এটা কেছ দিলোঁ। মই অন্যায় বিৰুদ্ধে প্ৰতিবাদ কৰি আছোঁ আৰু মুক্তিবাদ কৰি যাম যেতিয়ালৈকে মই জীয়াই আছোঁ।
That is all for this week's Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. For more information on these issues, log on to www.humanrights.asia. Thank you for watching and hope to see you again next week.